So most of my videos have been about how to make repeating patterns in Illustrator, which is a vector program. And today we're going to talk about how to make repeating patterns in Photoshop. But this is actually just the first step, which is how to reduce the number of colors in your repeating patterns down to the required number of colors at mass art at least, which is 8. So we can have, up to 8 colors throughout our collections, and this is based on how collections work in real life, right? And how textile designs work in real life, where you can't have any gradients or anything in a traditional mass manufactured textile design because everything has to be broken down by color, and that's the way it's produced. So we are going to use this picture of Olive, my dog, and these are just some gouache paintings that I've drawn a while ago. And I actually have her, um, I have her drawing in this little JPEG here, and I just have the open screen on Photoshop right now, so this is what it looks like when you first launch Photoshop, and I'm just going to drag um, the image in here and it'll open up. Okay, and now right now it's huge, it's like 42 inches wide, and that's because it's set up to be at 72 pixels per inch instead of 300 pixels per inch, which is print size. So we want to adjust that right away, and the way that you adjust that is, I believe it's image canvas size. Here it is over here. And we are going to, actually, I was incorrect. It's image size. And I'm always getting those backwards. But from image size, we have this option to change the resolution. So we can change it to 300 pixels per inch. And if we uncheck resample, there we go. That was the key. So when resample was checked, it was going to try to add pixels, which is not what you want to do in Photoshop whenever you're working with an illustration. Um, you just want to reduce the size in this case. So we uncheck resample, and that means it's not going to try to, use its computer brain to add pixels, which it might not be that good at. And we're just going to resize it. So now it's only 9 inches wide, and we can hit OK. And by the way, if your rulers are ever showing the wrong size, you can go to Edit, Preferences, Units, and you can change where your rulers are. Or on Macs, this file Preferences is under it's under Illustrator Preferences on Macs. So in here we can go to units and rulers, and we just change the units next to this rulers, change the ruler units to inches. So now we are ready. This is like the actual size that would be a good size to work at. And remember, in Photoshop, you really should kind of have the size you're going to work at ahead of time. When you start the project, you want to know what size you're going to work at. So I am going to work at 300 pixels per inch, and this is like as many pixels as my image can handle. But if I raise the size to 300 pixels per inch and then, I traced over one of these or whatever, and I uh, I wouldn't be able to necessarily make it bigger. So make sure that things are the right size. Like if you need one of these to be 12 inches wide, screw the resolution of the image, blow that up, make it a little blurry, and then trace over it or draw over it with the pencil tool. And there's other ways you can do it, but as long as you're making sure that you're working at 300 pixels per inch, as long as when you go to image size, it says 300 pixels per inch here, you should be able to get fine drawings out of that. As long as, so we're gonna make a new layer, and we're gonna start off with the most basic form of making a two-color print essentially, which would be to draw your motifs with the pencil tool. And the difference between the pencil tool and the brush tool is that the pencil tool will only make the exact color that you choose, right? So let's raise the size a bit, and we'll draw dots there. Where if we use the brush tool, even if the brush is on 100% hardness, if we zoom in on these, we're going to see that there's quite a different bit of difference in the edge quality of them. So it's basically the difference between aliasing and anti-aliasing, right? So we can even see from here that this is a bit bigger. My computer's glitching out, so it's going to go off to the, yeah, all right. Cool. So I hope that makes sense. I'll try to zoom in a couple more times here. The what's important in textile design, and in this case, in particular, what I'm focusing on is being able to select all of the color instantaneously with the magic wand tool. And we can do that correctly with this, but with this, see, we like kind of get the background a little bit. And if we lower the tolerance to 0, we might kind of lose some of the edge of the pixels sometimes. Anyway, things can get complicated fast when you go to recolor the artwork then. So it's really important that anti-aliasing is off the whole time when you're using any of the selection tools or the paint bucket tool too. And that if you're going to use a drawing tool, it should be the pencil tool, because it only makes hard pixels. It doesn't do any softening. So I am going to get rid of these dots, and we could draw over one of these. If you have if you want to draw in Illustrator from scratch, if you have like a tablet or something that allows you to do that, that's totally fine. Feel free to draw using the tablet. In fact, I have my my tablet here, and I could draw this way. As long as you're using the pencil tool, it'll be really easy to recolor the artwork, which is an important feature. Okay, so you kind of get the idea, and I could go in and clean this up. When you're using the eraser tool too, it's important to make sure that it is essentially on hard round pressure. Oh no, here, this is what we want to change. We want to change the mode of the eraser tool to pencil. When the mode is on brush, you can change the eraser tool to like all different kinds of options. But when it's on pencil, we're going to get that hard edge. So now we can lower the size of this too. Oops. I'm erasing, I've made a mistake. I've drawn on the background layer, and this is a classic mistake. So right now when I try to erase, I accidentally erase the whole like image into the background. So you really want to make sure if you're tracing anything that you're working on another layer. So that's what I'm going to do now after I hit Control Z enough to go backwards. We can also go to history to go backwards and just go all the way back. And delete it. All right, so now we'll make a new layer, and we are going to talk about a different technique now. So that was the pencil tool, and we also learned about changing the mode of the eraser tool to the brush tool, and both of those are great ways to make motifs with really hard lines that will be easy to change the color of. Okay, so now we're going to talk about reducing the number of colors with the magic wand tool, which is the way that I was first taught to do this. So we need to make sure with the magic wand tool that anti-alias is off. Like I said in the last video, if you watched it, anti-aliasing smooths out the edge, and we don't want any of that smoothing. Just like we don't want to use the brush tool, we want to use the pencil tool. Anti-aliasing will make it into like a soft edge, and we don't want that. We want it to be aliased. We aren't against aliasing over here. So when I clicked, it accidentally, well, not accidentally, but it selected the whole page. Instead, you can see the little marching ants all around the outside. So we want to make sure that sample all layers is checked off. And right now, I'm also going to check off contiguous because I'm just going to focus on this one motif. But if you wanted to uncheck contiguous, basically it would select all the brown in the image. Um, but the tolerance is on 0, so it's only selecting a few pixels. So we need to raise the tolerance to 50. And if we have contiguous unchecked, it selects all of the brown. But if we have it checked, and I'll deselect, Control D, it will only select brown that is touching it. So I'm going to raise the tolerance a little more even. I'll try 100. 100 is kind of a big leap, but yeah, so that's getting there. And what we can do is come in and clean this up. There's a few ways to clean it up, right? We've learned about the selection tools. We can use um, the like polygonal lasso tool and zoom in a bit and get some of these stray pieces in here. I don't know why it started off here. I'm thrown. Okay, shift. We have to hold shift while we're doing it, and we get that plus next to it. And you only have to hold shift at the beginning. You can release after you've started working, and double click to end it, and it adds in those things. Another way we can do this is whenever we have a selection tool, there's an option up in the control panels called select and mask. And if we click that, we get taken into this panel that allows us to like more directly edit the selection that we've made. So I think it's still loading, but what we want to do is over on view, we can make it black and white or overlay. And these are going to allow us to really see what's wrong. And we can also use brush tools over here, more like standard brush tools to be able to like edit this. So if we choose plus up here in the control panel for the brush tool that I've chosen, and we lower this so that it fits in the size. Oops. This must be the smudge tool. I think I need this top one. So I'm going to hit Control Z, and hopefully it'll undo. There we go. And yes, the quick selection tool, refine edge tool. All right, let's actually try the one that's actually called brush tool. The lasso tool works in here, of course. Here's the brush tool. Let's try it. It might give us the fuzzy edge that we're trying to avoid, which is what I'm hesitating a little bit about, but hopefully this is helpful even if you aren't working. I'm not sure why my screen is like it keeps doing this today to me in Photoshop. But that did seem to give us the hard edge that we were trying, or that soft edge that we're trying to avoid. And it's also totally glitching out. So let's try this last one, which is the quick selection tool, and it's also glitching out. So I will do it manually back in the other screen. So if we had made any of those changes and hit OK in there, they would be added to our selection. So that is a really good option for like in a mood board if you can't quite get things right. So after we feel like we have gotten the selection we want, and I'm just going to try holding shift and clicking on the darker parts. Hopefully that will add. Yeah, all right. So that's feeling pretty good. We can do the same with the parts that we're missing down here. Sometimes holding shift and taking a couple clicks is a great option. All right, so now that we have the whole shape selected, we're going to make sure we're on a new layer, and we are going to fill it with the paint bucket tool. And remember, we want anti-aliasing to be unchecked. And we're going to fill, we can use our random color over here, that's fine. And we forgot the eye, but that's okay. And I'm going to choose deselect. And so now we will be able to see anywhere where like things are a little fuzzy and what we can do, or like where we don't like anything, and we can go back in with the pencil tool and clean anything up. Like I can give this guy an eye. Wow, this is just me. You should not have this problem. I cannot imagine what is going on. It must be something to do um with my Wacom tablet. I really don't understand. Um but I can clean it up with my pen and it seems to be working fine. So thanks for understanding while things glitch out. Okay, so this is how I would reduce colors um, in Photoshop. If I were doing this with a photograph, what I would then do next is start selecting other sections, right? So if I want to make this a different color, I would select it and I would fill with the fill tool. Or since this is one closed space, we might be able to, it might glitch out, it might have a gap there, we'll have to see, but we might be able to fill this with a different color with just the paint bucket tool. All right, but what we're looking for is this hard edge between the two colors. And what this allows us to do is if we have, if we want to start applying our color palette to it, even though the tolerance of your paint bucket tool should be on 0, even though that's true, we can easily change all of the colors. And what you do end up having to do is kind of inspect and like get rid of any of these little dots like this, right? And that kind of thing, you get used to it over time uh, working in Photoshop, making motifs. It's a lot less straightforward to make that like hard line between the colors than it is in Illustrator. You have to keep turning off anti-aliasing all the time, but you can create kind of different effects and things. So it's worth exploring. So we're going to talk about one more way. For the last way, I want to actually reduce some of the complexity of this by using only my motifs. So I'm going to crop the image, and then after we crop it, we have to hit enter. So I'm just going to get rid of my hand and like some of the edge of the paper if I can. It's not too important really, but having the less colors that are already in here, the easiest this technique is going to be. So this is more automatic than the other ways, which are maybe a little bit more, I don't know, like artistic allowing. This is more like the computer is gonna kind of decide what to do, like auto trace in Illustrator, but a little bit more control. So we are going to go to Image, Mode, Index Color, and the only image I have on the page is my background image of my artwork. So we're going to choose Index Color, and this comes up. And what we want to do is we want to change forced to none, and this is just like how many colors it changes. So we want to change, we don't want to force any of them to change, but we are going to change them. And then we can't just lower the numbers in here. It's tempting to like try to do that, but it doesn't always work out the way that you want it to. So we are going to reduce it to the number of colors until it looks good. Um, and I think that your palette has to be on local selective for this to work right now. So let's try 15. So 15 looks pretty good, and I can zoom in here. Um, and what's happening is some dithering, right? So the dithering is how Photoshop does the shading with a limited number of colors. It's basically like what a manga comic does in order to do shading when they're actually only using black and white ink, that kind of thing. So you can actually change the type of dithering to pattern or so I have to let it load though. It has to think about changing all of that, which pattern just has this kind of nicer layout of dithering, and sometimes it can make these really beautiful shapes, especially on photographs when you try to do this on photographs. And you can also have the dithering shape be in noise, and then you can have it be on none as well, which none is going to like really limit what um, Illustrator is trying to do. And since I want these to just be like the background color and the foreground color, I am actually going to leave it on none, but you are welcome to play with dithering, um, even though technically dithering can be sometimes hard for screen printing to reproduce. And now we're going to change the palette to custom. Yeah, and we only have these 8 colors. So what we're going to do is we're going to make it just into 2 colors. So this is a really like easy to control process in terms of like getting the amount of colors that you need. You might need to have set this on 20 or 50 colors or something in order to get yours to still have all the colors you want, but have like less than 200 colors. And this technique is going to work for any amount of colors, honestly, even if your color palette is still up pretty high. So we can click and drag on this color table, and then it asks us for a color twice. So I'm actually going to put in the hexadecimal code for all white, or yeah, that's all Fs actually. Is all white is 6 Fs. So that's now perfectly white, and we can hit OK. And I think what it does is it asks you for like the first one and the last one, and then you could put in a gradient of colors or something. But I am just going to also put in F for that one. So now all of those are perfectly white, and we're going to do the same thing on these colors. Maybe I'll leave that transparent because I'm not sure where there would be any transparency in the image. But we're going to grab these 3 colors. I'm clicking and holding and dragging on them. It's not like click one and then click the other, or click one. Yeah, so you click and drag on them and release. And then this comes up, and it's on that like really light gray. It would have been nice. I'm actually going to hit cancel. I want them all to be this color. So I'm going to click on that just once, and it comes up with the color picker, and I'm going to write down the hexadecimal code down here, right? 8E3230. And I'll hit cancel. And then I'll click and drag on all of them. And we'll type that in here. 8382, sorry, 8E 3230. There we go. So now 8E3230 in this one as well, and we hit OK. And there we have it. We have a 2-color print, and it's that easy for using that technique. I really think that that's like it's a nice way to reduce colors, but working with the magic wand tool and doing it that way, and the fill tool, that's totally fine, or any of that. So now we're going to hit OK. Yeah, and what I would probably do is grab the pencil tool and go through and just clean some of these up because some of them have like lost some of that detail and gotten a little bit dithered. So I would just clean all of that up. Um, and that wouldn't take you very long to do. So if you like to start from hand, it might be a great option for you to work in Photoshop. You just have to make sure that in order to fulfill the requirements of the project that you do reduce the number of colors that you use, and you don't want to accidentally use anti-aliasing or anything like that. You want to really be sure that things are nice and clean and crisp and have under a certain amount of colors. So this allows us to change the color really easily, just really quickly. If we grab the paint bucket tool and we make sure that contiguous un is unchecked, um, and also we want anti-aliasing to be unchecked. But that might be not anti-aliasing might not be an option when you work on dithered colors. Oh no, it still says it's an option there, so I'm not sure. But with the paint bucket tool, we can fill in all of that color at once, which is the benefit of using the using that layer. Or maybe since it's indexed now, we would have to like save it and then recolor it as a JPEG or something. But we could also change the color instantly by going to mode index color and finding that panel again. Although it doesn't let me get that panel again. I'd have to change it to RGB color. There should still technically only be two colors in here, I think. Um, like if we zoom in, we should only see the uh, the black and the white, but now we should be able to change the color. Yeah, so it was just that it was on index color, which is great for color reduction, but then it wasn't allowing me to change the color. But with the paint bucket tool, if you switch back to RGB color, you should be able to recolor the artwork just fine if that's what you need to do. Um, yeah, so let's try just as an experiment switching back to index color. Yeah, and it still says that there's only 15 colors in there. And I wonder if we do local selective and we change it down to 2, how it'll work now, how it'll look. Yeah, cool. And then if we went into custom, we could just double check, actually it's just a single click and change the color in here if we wanted to. So there's a few different ways to adjust your colors in Photoshop, but I will probably do more on that in a little bit. But there we go. I'll talk to you later. Bye.